I'm here in Florida at the home of the Orlando Magic. Today you'll meet Pat Williams. He's the senior vice president and a co-founder of this team. But today's story isn't all about sports. Pat and his wife Ruth have 19 children, many who were adopted from other countries. Stay with us as we follow their personal journey of creating a family dynasty. As the senior vice president and co-founder of the Orlando Magic, Pat Williams has had a busy and successful career in sports, but he never let his work interfere with his plans for a family. Pat is the father of 19 children. 14 have been adopted from other countries. For the first 10 years of his marriage, Pat had no interest in adoption. He and his first wife already had 3 children of their own, but his wife's insistence finally swayed Pat. His life was changed after he saw a photo of 2 beautiful orphan girls in South Korea.
Through the Holt Children's Services in Eugene, Oregon, we learned that South Korea was the nation you could most readily adopt from, and we also learned there were 2 little girls, 2 and 3 years old, that were available. We had a grainy little black and white photo to look at, some sketchy medical records, and the vote was, let's do it. And they arrived at the Philadelphia airport in mid-September of 1983, 2 and 3 years old, escorted here by a couple of off-duty airline hostesses. And there they were. They got off the plane, and I remember saying to the Holt official, in fact, it was Mrs. Holt, Bertha Holt, the founder of the agency. I said, "What do we do now?" And she said, "Put them in your car and go home." And said, "Don't forget the birth kids."
Well, since you brought that up, Pat, how has adopting all of these children affected your biological kids?
Well, I think they're the real heroes of the story. As the numbers kept increasing, we kept giving them a vote. We gave them the right to express their opinions. The vote was always unanimous. I got so into it after for 10 years having no interest and being very negative about it. I got really into it. Got to the point where I couldn't travel overseas anymore. Most people would come back with postcards or T-shirts. You know, if you don't come back from another country with a kid, you know, you've had a bad trip. So I just stopped traveling internationally because the scene is so heartbreaking. You know, you go see the favelas in Brazil or some of the squalor around the world. And your hope was, or my feeling was, we got to get these kids out of here. You know, we got to do something. You know, I'm an action guy. Let's get something done. Get them out. Get them back to Orlando. We might have a big league ball player down here in the favela. You know, we may have a point guard for the Magic or the second baseman for the Yankees just sitting down here needing a chance.
After a heartbreaking end to his first marriage, Pat met a wonderful woman named Ruth. A mother of 1, Ruth told Pat her greatest regret from her first marriage was she didn't have more children. Pat knew he could help Ruth with this problem. Ruth was welcomed into the family and more than happy to take on the responsibility of 19 children. The couple has been happily married for 12 years.
Well, even before we got even close to talking about marriage, just when we were kind of dating and kind of getting serious, he said one day, you know, before we go any further, you need to meet my kids. And I said, fine. And he'd never brought anyone else home, and so he didn't really want to make it seem like he was dating someone. And so he said, how would you feel about being the nanny for a weekend? He was going out of town. He said, I'll give the nanny the weekend off. How would you like to just take over as the nanny? I said, fine. And so I did, and we had a lot of fun that night. We hit it off, because in families, particularly who have been divorced and have children, if you don't get along with the children, you gotta let it go.
It doesn't work then.
Doesn't work, because you marry the whole family. I married him, but I also married the children. But we got along great, so it was wonderful.
One of the memorable moments was at the wedding ceremony. A friend, Dr. Jay Strack, we had the marriage in his backyard. And the vows that were taken that day were prepared for this. And Ruth, led by Dr. Strack, made the statement, your children will be my children. And that was a powerful moment.
Okay, now this is the challenging question. Give me the names and ages of all your children in chronological order, if you can.
You want to go?
Well, I can knock that down. Stephanie, Jimmy, Bobby, Karen, Michael. That's the American-grown division. Then the South Korean division is Sarah, Andrea, Stephen, and Thomas. Filipino ranks are David, Peter, Brian, and Sammy. The Romanian world is Gabriela and Katerina, and the Brazilian south of the border crew would be Richard, Daniela, Caroline, and Alan. And then we've got 8 grandchildren, and we go Layla, we go Ava, we go Audrey, we go Austin, we go Brianna, we go Max, we go Nola, and and Anthony, little Anthony and the Imperials. So that should be eight of them.
When we return, we'll hear from Pat and Ruth's daughters about growing up in such an unconventional family.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real life issues head on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
Sister Sarah and Andrea were the first to be adopted by Pat from South Korea. They are both now grown and raising families of their own. Along with their sister Dani, one of the last children to be adopted, they recount the circumstances that led to their joining this large and diverse family.
Well, Sarah and I, we were the first two to be adopted. I was 2, she's a year older. We were given up, we were born in Seoul, South Korea, and then we were placed in the police station in a basket, and that's where we went up to the orphanage. I was adopted when I was 2. We've been here. We lived in New Jersey, and then we moved down here to help my dad to start the magic, and that's about it. And watched everybody else get adopted.
So you watched the tribe increase, did you?
Mm-hmm. We were there every time somebody else got adopted at the airport.
I was born in São Paulo, Brazil, and I've been here for, I was adopted when I was 11. My background, pretty much my mom gave me up for adoption when I was 8 years old. As far as I can remember, she was really poor. She couldn't take care of me. So she figured the best thing to do is give me up for adoption. It was hard at first. She pretty much left me in the courthouse with the shoebox. And from there, I was in and out in orphanages, about 4 or 5, like I said, between 8 and 11.
And all of this is in Brazil?
This is all in Brazil. Then finally, the people at the orphanage, like, we have a family that wants to adopt you. And it was actually 2 families, one from Canada and one, my dad now. So I finally went to the courthouse. I looked at him, and then it was just love at first sight. He did this little wave that he always does. And I was like, I wonder if that's going to be my new dad. A month later, I came to America, and there was about 14 brothers and sisters waiting for me with signs at the Orlando airport. I'm going up the escalade, and obviously I see a sea of other kids. Different faces, different backgrounds, different culture, different language. That was a culture shock.
What was your thought at that particular time as you're seeing all these different faces?
Well, that's friends. I was like, wow, I'm going to have a lot of friends, but in the back of my mind, that's my new family.
Sarah, what was your favorite part of growing up in this family?
My brothers and my sisters, getting to know them, and I don't know how to say, understanding like their personalities and I don't know, they became my best friends.
Stephanie Simmons was Ruth's only daughter before she married Pat. The transition from being an only child to having 18 brothers and sisters could have been a difficult one, but Stephanie was welcomed in and began forming close relationships with her siblings. To this day, they all still spend as much time together as they can by vacationing, going to Magic basketball games, and just spending the weekends together. Stephanie knows her life would have been very different if she hadn't become a part of this family.
It was easier for me because I was out of the house, living on my own. So, you know, I lived in Tampa at the time, so I would come in and visit and spend a lot of time with the kids. You know, I never had any younger brothers or sisters, so that was a lot of fun. I think if I would have been a teenager, like the 13 of them that were at home, it would have been a little more tough for me, just going from having my own space and my own room to having to share so much. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, was there ever that moment where you pulled your mom aside and said, "Mom, are you sure you're doing the right thing?"
Of course, of course, but I could see how much she loved Pat and just took to the kids, so I knew pretty quick that it was the right thing for her.
A match made in heaven.
A match made in heaven. And she always made me feel like I was still important, you know, just because there was a bunch of other kids in the picture, you know, I didn't get neglected, so to speak, so that was nice.
What did they do to make you feel more at home?
We just kind of clicked. We just, you know, spending time together and including me on family activities that they did. Like I said, I didn't live here at the time, so when I was here, it was usually on weekends, so it was usually the fun times. If, you know, they would go bowling or you know, whatever they did. And I think, you know, going to the Magic games as well, just Pat, you know, being so involved with the Magic, that was, you know, I enjoyed doing that, so that was kind of something we all had in common that we enjoyed doing. Created a lot of really neat relationships that, you know, I wouldn't have had being an only child.
Coming up, we'll hear how Pat and Ruth were able to cope with raising such a large family.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
Being the parents to 19 children is no easy task. Both Ruth and Pat have had successful, demanding careers. Pat with different sports teams across the country, and Ruth with the prestigious Franklin Covey organization. Yet they never let their careers take away from the time spent with their family. They found a balance of love and discipline, along with prioritizing time spent with the kids, have allowed them to cope with raising such a diverse family.
I think making sure that each child gets their time, that's the key thing, and making sure you're available for them.
And I would say paying the bills.
Yeah.
Big families bring big issues, really. But having said that, we wouldn't go back and redo any of it. I'm a firm believer in international adoption. It's not for everybody, but those families that have a sense of risk, perhaps, or doing some off-the-wall stuff, you know, I do encourage those families to really pursue international adoption.
Now, Pat, as the senior vice president of the Orlando Magic, and your time spent with the 76ers, you've had a very busy yet prosperous career. How have you balanced that with raising 19 children?
I could have beaten myself up. You know, I wasn't here all the time, but I made a high priority of being at the kids' events, their games, their swimming meets. I didn't want to miss that. And I didn't make unnecessary trips. But this was not a cheap undertaking. You know, we'd be wealthy if we had a normal family, but we poured every resource we could, and that meant bringing home paychecks and speaking and writing books and doing everything I could to pay the bills. Balance is important. You do have to keep a balance in your life between job and family and your church activity and your physical fitness and your ongoing education, and you know, it's a juggling act, but balance is awfully important.
But the kids also were what's the word I want? But they were part of whatever team he was with. I mean, they would go to the games and he would be there, so they were included in that too.
I included them in as much as I could in everything that I was doing.
I don't know how he did it. He was always there. Like, we did sports a lot growing up. We didn't watch TV, we did sports. Some kids would do like 2 or 3 different kinds of sports, but he would be there for every like swim meet, every like basketball game, volleyball game for us. Softball.
Yeah.
Softball.
I just thought
We all did
that
softball together.
I was the worst one. I'll say it because they're gonna say it anyways.
But yeah, like for the boys, he was there for every meet, event, everything. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, he was always cheering
like
us
super
on.
dad.
We would hear him, "Go, Dani, go, Dani." I'll be running track around, and I could hear Dad in the stands, "Go, Dani." And I'm like, wow, you made it. And there was a Magic game tonight. But he was always, always there.
Even to this day, if we ever have a problem or ever need to talk about anything, I mean, we always come straight to them. Like if we have, you know, a problem with work or a problem with our children or anything like that, I always call Ruth, I always call Dad, you know, and they always give you words of wisdom.
At one point, you had 16 teenagers in your house in one year. How did that work out for you?
Well, I realized that in that year why some animals eat their young. It was demanding. It was testosterone and estrogen flowing through the house. Every other in was flowing through here. But we got through it. We got it done. We never anticipated it coming. It's not like years before we said, oh, that's the year of the teenager, but it became the year of the teenager. So when I tell people that, I think it gives them a sense of, you know, I can accomplish anything. If that guy got through 16 of them, you know, I can get through what I'm getting through. Interesting year, let's just put it that way.
And lots of good days, but a lot of challenges too. So
Your average family then, in that regard?
exactly, this really is no different than any other family other than the numbers.
I do point out to people we are not Ozzie and Harriet. We're not the Cleavers. You know, we're not the Huxtables. I mean, this is real life, dirt under your fingernail stuff. We've got, as Layla says, we've got tissues. Layla is our 5-year-old granddaughter. I've got tissues, Mom, meaning issues. Well, we've got tissues every day.
In a moment, we'll hear how Pat's choice to adopt will be blessing their family for years to come.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real life issues head on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
Sarah, Andrea, and Dani know their lives have been changed for the better because they were adopted. They can't imagine what their lives would be like if they hadn't been brought into the Williams clan. With 8 grandchildren now blessing the family, Pat and Ruth have seen the generational impact adoption can have. Stephanie, Andrea, and Sarah each have children of their own and see how being part of this large, unique family will impact them. You have 2 children, as you mentioned, a newborn and a 2-year-old. How has coming into such a large family impacted them, do you think?
You know, they'll grow up with an instant set of really close friends. You know, they have, you know, there's 8 grandchildren right now. They all spend a lot of time together. We're here a lot. You know, we have the playroom, you know, the pool, the play yard outside. So whenever there's a birthday or any kind of holiday, we're all here together. So, you know, they'll have their friends in school, all of them will, but, you know, they have that instant group that, you know, they'll always have, always be a part of their life. You know, friends will come and go, but their cousins will always be there.
One great thing that I'm going to do with my girls is I'm going to teach them all the different cultures. Like, my husband is Polynesian and Chinese, and I'm Korean, so we're going to take time, like maybe a month at a time, and learn our different cultures so that they can understand where they came from.
We do have 5 generations that are working within our family.
One other angle I would put on that, we have a Korean American granddaughter. We have 3 Tahitian Korean granddaughters. We have a Filipino American grandson. We have a Romanian American grandson. We have a Brazilian African American granddaughter. And then we've got 2 Americans.